Hello, everybody. Welcome to a surprise special bonus episode, I guess. We were recording the last episode of season 7, and we were like, well, we've got a whole lot of discussion, and we really don't have time to squeeze in the bonus materials and stuff. So this is what we normally do at the end of the season is talk about the bonus materials that are still on the DVD. So we're doing that as well as revisiting Threat Level Midnight, the full movie that is also available on the DVDs. So we are getting started with one of the webisode series that is included in the final disc.
There are 3 parts to this webisode. It's called The Third Floor. That is the arch name of the 3. Inside of that is Moving On, Lights, Camera, Action, and The Final Product. So this story is about Kelly and Aaron and eventually Ryan. It starts with Moving On. So we see Kelly and Aaron watching the music video that they made for Girl Next Door. Now, I can't remember if I think we've seen this somewhere in one other webisode. Do you remember where we've seen this?
I'm trying to remember. Aaron and Kelly made a girl group, and
Yeah.
I think Ryan is in it too. I don't think we covered it yet, so we're gonna have to find it and do another one of these special bonus episodes at some point. But that's the context.
Because I've heard the song, but I didn't know where and if we'd covered it yet. But yes.
They're called Subtle Sexuality, I think.
Subtle Sexuality. We don't get to see the music video, unfortunately, but Aaron is so congratulatory for Kelly. Kelly's really upset that she only has 2 views on YouTube. She thought she would be absolutely famous by now. So she suggests that perhaps the reason she's only gotten 2 views is because music and dance are dead. Okay. Perhaps it's that, it's not relevant or not good, but that's not a possibility. So I'm going to give up music and dance, is what Kelly says, but not on fame. She's not going to give up on fame. Erin is relieved because she really liked being famous. She said, everyone here knows my name, and she likes that. So Kelly wants to express herself, but she says she has nothing to say and no medium in which to do it. Kevin says that performing isn't the only way to express yourself. He, for instance, writes poetry. We get to hear a little poem he wrote. It's a haiku. Beauty approaches. I am brought under its spell. I long to be with... And then I ran out of syllables. Didn't plan that one out too well.
So at this point, we bump into Ryan, who's on the phone with an old folks home. He has a talking head. He says, I wanted to film a zombie movie. Picture this, 50 ancient zombies traipsing through the pothole-ridden streets of Scranton out for blood. And he says, sounds scary, right? Well, the management at this old folks living home doesn't want Ryan to do this because they say it sounds exploitative. And so he's not being able to do what he wants artistically. Aaron and Kelly aren't doing what they want to do artistically. And so Kelly suggests, hey, how about we do your movie with you? We make a movie together. And so that's what they decide on. Ryan resists at first. Kelly says, hey, it's okay. Lots of directors use their girlfriends in their movies. But then Ryan says something interesting. He says, you're not my girlfriend. We're linked. We're linked. Okay. And so she is able to convince him, says, hey, you can film it in the office. It won't cost you anything. And Ryan says, okay, well, if the director of Paranormal Activity can take a bunch of nobodies and a crap location and make a hit, so can I. So he thinks of Dunder Mifflin as a crap location. And at this point, it's the very end of this part. Kelly and Aaron start singing, we've got an outlet, and they're dancing. And Kelly says, no more singing and dancing for us.
While singing and dancing, of course.
Right.
Which brings us to part 2 of Third Floor, Lights, Camera, Action. We start filming this zombie movie starring Kelly and Aaron and several other people in the office, some of which didn't plan on being stars of this of this movie. But for instance, Angela goes to make copies. This is regular life, office life. Angela goes to make copies, and when she lowers the lid to the copier, she's accosted by a zombie, or at least Aaron dressed as a zombie. Ryan is, of course, there filming, and he's thrilled to capture the authenticity of Angela's reaction, because it was authentic, because she was terrified. And when Angela asks if that's a real knife that Aaron's holding, he explains that prop knives cost way more than real ones, and they had real knives, so let's use what we've got. Gabe, of course, does not like what's going on, and he tries to reprimand Ryan, but he's not allowed to reprimand people in the office, apparently. And oh, by the way, Ryan is dressed as a Hollywood tool now. He's just totally, once again, changed personas. We've seen Ryan change persona with every hobby he has. Ryan says he's looked through the handbook. There's nothing about not making a horror movie in the office. There's no rule against this. Gabe points out, well, it does say you can't bring weapons into work, and right on cue, Aaron comes in wielding an axe and screaming at Gabe. So lines have been crossed.
It's pretty great because Gabe at this point like shrieks and starts crying a little bit. And Kelly runs in at this point as Gabe is crying, and she yells at him and says, "Run!" He panics and he says, "Where? There's nowhere to run." And so Ryan at this point turns around in his chair and he thumbs up Kevin, who's their camera guy, and he returns the thumbs up. And then it immediately cuts to not only Ryan is getting scorned now, all of them are getting scorned. Gabe says, "You can't sneak up on people wielding weapons anymore. It's petrifying and frankly unprofessional." And Ryan says, "Hey, listen, man, it may not be professional for you, but for me, making films is my profession." And he gives the camera this little side eye. And Gabe starts to say something about not wanting to threaten him, but if the production continues, he will threaten him. And Ryan interrupts and says, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa. Your voice just now sounded resonant and commanding. I have an idea that is so nuts, I feel like we kind of have to do it. Would you like to do voiceover work for my film?" And Gabe's just like, "Wait a second. Resonant, commanding? Really? Everyone usually says my voice is really nasally." And he said his stepdad always said he sounds like Truman Capote, but gayer. Ouch. But Gabe accepts, and Ryan says, "Okay, I will direct, I will produce, I will act, I will write the score. I'll be the first person to wear 4 hats, all 4 hats." And Gabe says, "Actually, Clint Eastwood already does all of that." And Ryan says, "Oh yeah? Well, does he also play his own soundtrack?" And he picks up a saxophone, which we saw previously in season 7. When he was having, quote, band practice in this conference room. And when we saw that, we asked, does Ryan know how to play saxophone? And I think the consensus between the two of us was, no way he knows how to play saxophone. And we were pretty much right. He makes a sound on the saxophone, but it does not sound good, even for a saxophone. And still, he's proud. And he says, "Let's make a movie, guys."
Did you just throw some subtle shade at saxophones?
Did I? I don't know.
Caught that. Okay. And the final product, of course, we get to see the final product of this film. So we see the film in its entirety. Kelly is a paper salesman, and Meredith, a creepy old beggar woman, comes in and asks for paper, but she can't pay. When Kelly denies her, Meredith curses her and, "May all the spirits of serial killers past combine forces and haunt the 3rd floor for all eternity." Kelly doesn't think much about this because we're on the 2nd floor, so okay, crazy. She goes about her day. Meanwhile, we see Aaron Zombie kill Kevin, who plays a security guard. Creed, who is Press, describes the zombie, the right arm of Lizzie Borden, the left arm of Jeffrey Dahmer, the heart of Jack the Ripper, and the legs of all the serial killers who ever got away. We see Angela and Gabe in scenes from the last episode. They made it into the final cut. And then Kelly questions why these murders are happening, because they're on the 2nd floor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, who makes, as he said, he makes an appearance in this, explains that during renovations, they added a basement, making this the 3rd floor. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, snap. That's not how buildings work.
No, it is not.
I love that Kevin is wearing his Paul Blart costume from like the previous Halloween.
Yeah.
And the last part of this final product is the attack on Kelly. Kelly goes back to the original woman, Meredith, to reverse the curse. And that's when Aaron shows up to murder her. And one of the most absurd horror chase sequences I've ever seen follows. Kelly's like running backwards slowly the whole time, and she's poorly throwing obstacles in front of her, like a small coat rack that Aaron could just walk over, or a rolling chair that she throws in the way, but then it just rolls out of the way. And so then she grabs the candy jar off of reception and throws that on the ground, and Aaron trips, quote unquote, trips on the candy to the ground. So Kelly thinks she's safe. She goes out to the hallway, is hitting the buttons on the elevator. Then the doors open, and dun dun dun, Aaron is there, ready to kill her. And then we get the tagline of the film, very last thing, which is third floor's the harm.
Ugh.
It's so clever. Mm.
I do have to give Erin props in this though, because her commitment to this zombie role,
No
man,
kidding.
her chase at the end, I mean, it was crazy and dramatic and unrealistic, but her physicality of this zombie was so committed and very creepy and jagged, and I was kind of into that. Like that, not that came out wrong, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I was on board with her physicalization of the character. She did it. She committed at least.
Yeah, she did a really good job. So that was the third floor, and I'm just looking at a list of webisodes, and I'm realizing that there are some that we have not talked about, I don't think. So we'll have to go back, and we talked about the podcast, right? Like the webisode,
Yes.
the podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually released after this one, but it was included on the season 6 DVD for some reason. We just now got the third floor. So we'll have to see if any of the next 2 seasons have some of these older ones. Otherwise, we'll have to go back and find them and talk about them separately. But yeah, we'll get to that eventually. So the other major bonus on the season 7 DVD was the blooper reel, which they include every season. And it's great. There's lots of funny stuff. What's the first moment that stood out to you, Katie?
I just wrote down a couple, as I think you did.
Yeah.
When Creed asks Jordan for their biggest client, which we just covered in, I think, our last episode of the main show, Pam says, "You can't do that." And as she's saying that, a lighting gel falls on her head from above. And amazingly, Jenna Fisher doesn't break. Everyone else does, but she just sort of like kind of keeps it going. A lighting gel being those colors that you put over theater lights or set lights. And she just keeps going.
And there was also a slight line change in that in that blooper that made me laugh. I think Creed says something like, "Get me our biggest client on the phone, ASMP," or something like that.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to say ASAP, but he just butchers it.
Yeah.
It's different than what he says in the actual episode. I really liked when Michael had his talking head. In the original episode, it's something like, "No, I love working at Dunder Mifflin, Division of Taliban Enterprises," or something like that. In this one, he says, "No, I love working at Dunder Mifflin, Taliban branch." And then the light goes out. And he makes his face and he goes, "Oh," and the light turns back on. And so he's like, "Okay, well, I guess I say the line again." So he starts to say the line again. "No, I love work." And then the light goes off again. And the next time it comes back on, he just like, "Okay, here we go." And he speed says the line, "No, I love working at Dunder Mifflin Taliban branch." And he just smiles while everybody else in the back is laughing.
Another Michael one. This is at a watch party, I guess it would be, because they're at Gabe's house. And he's tossing the pizza dough because it's make your own pizza night. And he tosses it a little too high and it hits the ceiling fan, which is on and working apparently, and lands on a boom mic. Apparently, I just like the ones that involve lighting and mics, but and it lands on a boom mic and just, I don't know, it just made me laugh.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the episode, he does that and it goes into like the sink or something, but the aim was just wrong, I guess, this time.
Just whips around the room.
Yeah, for the Glee viewing party. In counseling, that's the episode where Dwight claims the people at the mall are appearanceists. Jim comes over in this blooper and leans on the counter next to Dwight's desk to say something, but there's like a little stuffed duck there and it quacks when it's squeezed. And so John Krasinski leans on this and it starts quacking. He just like smirks and he tries to get it out of the way by putting it on Dwight's desk, and then it's still going. And so he brings it back up, and Dwight at this point, Rain is still in character, and he says, "Jim, that is so inappropriate." Here, John is just trying to get it to be quiet, and so he moves it over, and he stopped touching it, and he holds up his finger, "Hold on a second," and then it quacks again. It's just like this thing won't stop quacking.
It reminds me of those birthday cards. Apparently, there's this prank birthday card that it's like one of those music playing ones. You open it and it plays a song and it goes on a little bit too long. So every time you close it and reopen it, it gets a little bit louder. Or if you like hit it, it gets louder and louder and louder. And it goes on for something like 30 days or something.
That's pretty great.
Gotta find one. Michael, in the Threat Level Midnight episode, there's a outtake from that where he's doing his workout on the machine with no weights. We all know the one. and he's just spitting water out of his mouth, and he's just going, brah, brah. He's like making these, I can't even do the sound he makes, but these aggressive, like violent sounds as he's working out with no weights and not working out.
Right. For the episode where they go to the skating rink, Andy, Kevin, and Daryl, when they climb over, when they turn on the strobe, Craig Robinson accidentally sort of stumbles over the wall and like lands halfway down, and Andy or Ed climbs over and he accidentally lands on Craig because he didn't realize he was in the way. And so they just like fall on top of each other. They're just holding each other and laughing pretty hard. It was pretty good.
I think I just have two more. In the commentary for this episode, I forget who, maybe Jenna Fisher said this about Toby, about Paul Lieberstein, when Toby was excited to use the gun violence form for the gun that Dwight shot. In the commentary, they mentioned how Paul kept saying the line so quietly, and we hear one of them here. He's like, "Oh, we should go get the accident report binder. I've never used a gun." What, Toby? And he says it again, and he can't seem to get it out. And he's like, "Oh, I'm having a stroke." He can't say the line loudly for some reason. It's just really funny, but also uncomfortable, and it's just, I don't know. It's very Toby.
And that's the one where he went back to the annex and they were like shouting at him, "You need to say your line. We didn't hear what you said." And he comes back out and he just like slurs all of his speech. Like, I need to go to the hospital.
Are you drunk?
Yeah. And you had one more?
Yeah, just one little one. Oscar finally blew a scene, which he never does. And everyone just applauds for him. And he's so frustrated. He's like, no, I didn't blow it. And everyone's just clapping for him because he's apparently famous for not breaking. And he broke.
Good for him. Good on you, Oscar.
Yeah, I messed up. It's okay.
Okay, now one that we've been talking about doing for a few weeks now, we are going back to talk about Threat Level Midnight, because on the DVD, we get the full cut of the movie. That it's 26 minutes long, so it's longer than most of the normal episodes of the show are. So first thing I thought was worth pointing out, we get the full opening credits starring Michael Scott, James Halpert, Pam Beesly, Daryl Philbin, D.K. Schrute, and then it says, "And introducing Ryan Howard." I'm trying to remember now, what did Ryan play?
I truly don't know.
Off the top of my head now, I don't think he is in the movie.
No, because I watched this about 20 minutes before we started recording this right now, and I didn't see him. So
yeah,
I don't know. But I made a note as well, introducing Ryan Howard.
Yeah.
Maybe
introducing
as
him
sort of like on the production end, but that doesn't make sense. That's not where you put production team. So I don't know. Golden Face, we learn, has a thing for All-Star games. He's tried to blow up the, quote, NFL All-Star game, which is not a thing. The Basketball All-Star game, which is not a thing. The NBA All-Star game, which is a thing. And the WNBA All-Star game. So only two of those exist. And we learn that the WNBA All-Star game is how Catherine Zeta-Skarn was killed.
Yeah. I thought it was funny. He lists all the organizations as the NFL, the NBA, the WNBA, but then it's just the baseball. I think it's pretty clear, yeah. Pretty clear which sports that Michael is a fan of. The president says that this one's personal for him because he owns the stadium. That's my retirement plan. They can't go in because Golden Face will kill the hostages, and they can't cancel the game because it costs too much money to cancel. And Skarn says, "Money. It's always about money, isn't it? If I ever own a business, I'm not even going to care about money." It's like this really strange anti-business, anti-money thing thrown in at the very beginning. And then it's not really revisited again by Skarn, at least, though we do get something from Golden Face down the line.
Mm-hmm. I attributed that to Michael Scott, and his business isn't about money. It's about family and it's about friends, so I would assume that would translate to Michael Skarn as well.
Yeah. And right after that, it's funny. We've learned that Skarn initially turned down the president. He says, "I don't think it's important enough." And then he says, "But just out of curiosity, what's the threat level on this?" And the president says, and I wish this had been left in the episode, "I can't sugarcoat this. We're at threat level midnight." And that's when Skarn accepts and decides to do the coin flip.
7
So,
times.
Of course, we had to get the title drop in there somewhere.
The hostages are being held hostage and decide to pick a leader, someone who can take on Golden Face. Pam's character, Sandra, has experience as a leader, she says, as a leader, as a negotiator, as a general, and as a cop. She's a mom.
Oh my gosh, my eye roll almost caused me like physical damage.
So they chose her based on those credentials to be the leader. So she is the leader of the group because she's a mom. Now, moms are great.
Yeah.
But
they were playing like 90s sitcom music while she was saying that.
Yeah.
In other words, I'm a mom. It was like something from Boy Meets World. And they were all just like nodding and smiling.
In the middle of this hostage situation.
And the reason they had been left alone during this scene is because Golden Face was like, yeah, I'm going to go do some drugs real quick. And then he comes back when Kevin tries to charge down the door. And he's like, man, those drugs really hit the spot. He says, so you guys chosen a leader yet? And Pam has this awkward line. We get her recording this a few times in the blooper reel as well, where she literally just goes, gulp, because she's the leader.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to get through that without breaking either. And Jenna definitely couldn't. Michael, when he gets to the Funky Cat, is looking for Jasmine Winsong. He walks in and sees a redhead sitting down from behind, and he asks her if she's Jasmine Winsong. Meredith turns around and is wearing a mustache and just says in this grumpy voice, I'm a man. Oh, okay. I guess she had to make an appearance. I mean, she's seen later in the bachelorette party table a bit, but otherwise that's her big line.
Yeah, she does not look happy about it either. I'm a man. And so he goes to the piano and he puts money in the tip jar and he tells the pianist, who is Tony Gardner, Pepperoni Tony, beat it, turd. And Tony just says, thanks, mister. And he walks off.
Ready to get off the job, I guess.
Yeah. And this is where we get like the biggest chunk of stuff that we didn't get in the episode. It's all the extended stuff with Jasmine.
Yes, so this is the narrator speaking. Scarn knew that the only way to get Jasmine to tell him where the hostages were was to make her fall in love with him. And the only way to do that was to be himself.
Gosh, Michael, self-confidence much?
Self-confidence. So Scarn starts telling stuff about himself to Jasmine Winsong to make her fall in love with him. He says he likes Billy Joel songs. We knew that based on the soundtrack of the movie. Fish sandwiches. Okay, that's specific. Babies, puppies. He said he actually likes to think of puppies as baby dogs. Maybe that's weird, but that's what I do. They are baby dogs. Accurate. He says he's part Bruce Wayne, part Bruce Willis, and part Bruce Valanche. Okay, odd combo. But it works. She tells him to stick around for her set because he'll find it informative.
Yeah. And so at this point, she announces to the crowd, okay, everybody, I'm afraid this might be my last performance. This one goes out to anyone who has been held hostage. And this whole time, Troy, remember the short guy, Ryan's friend from New York, is watching across the room. And so, yeah, he's the one who kills her with the blow dart. We see that in the episode. But it was just funny that she announces this as her final performance because she knows she's about to get killed for singing backwards.
Yeah. And from there, the story kind of progresses as we've seen it for a while up until Michael gets shot and he ends up in the hospital. We learn from the nurse, who of course is Pam's mom, Helene, that the bullet apparently went through every major organ in his body, his brain, lungs, heart, back, and balls. I have two thoughts there. Two thoughts. Back and balls are not a major organ, and how? Those are,
rubber bullets.
Yeah, apparently.
They just bounce around. When she starts kissing him, this might be something we see in the episode cut as well, but it's something I paid attention to this time. His heart rate starts climbing. And so we see it goes from 97 to like 141 to 197 to 240. And that's a little concerning if just a simple kiss makes your heart rate go 250.
I don't think his...
I think you would die.
Yeah, I think he's not ready to be raising his heart rate yet. So he leaves the hospital and he's back at the president's office, the Oval Office. And the president, who is now evil, of course, we have seen Golden Face enter the office, has video footage of Scarn killing Oscar's character, the ice skater.
That was pretty major.
Yeah, that I was like actually surprised. and is using that against Skarn. He says, "Who will people believe, the president of the United States or this man?" And he shows him the video. So now he's sort of blackmailed into submission.
At this point, we get the scene between Jim and Pam that we were told about in the commentary for the actual episode. And we hear some of these snippets of the lines in the episode, but this is the first time we get to see it. So Roy, funny enough, is in the scene and suggests to Pam, "Hey, now's your chance. Go talk to Goldenface, see what you can do." So she goes up to him, says, "Hey, why is your face gold?" He says, "Why do you care?" She's like, "Well, I'm just trying to make conversation." Like, I don't. I'm just making conversation. And so he tells us this tragic backstory. He worked in a gold factory. Yes, a gold factory for an element. You factor, yeah, okay. And he had a boss who only cared about money. They didn't get lunch breaks, so they had to eat the gold. Then one day he looked in the mirror. "I guess you are what you eat." And so he reveals that his motivation for blowing up all the All-Star games, he says, if I could blow up all of the All-Star games, all the trophies would explode. And then everyone would be gold just like him. Yeah.
And dead. And also not gold, but yeah.
And it's worth noting, too, that Roy, or Pam, says it's really sad. And so she kisses Goldenface on the cheek. And then Roy from the background, when she kisses him, says, "Hey, please let us go, Goldenface." It's like, yeah, I saw that.
And then I think the next thing we see is Michael Skarn entering the bar. And most of that is the same at the beginning, except I love that Skarn says, "Beer me, Billy," as he sits down, which of course is a line that we got from Andy a while back.
Mm-hmm.
Billy tries to give Michael his pep talk unsuccessfully. The bachelorette party bought him that drink. And originally we just got a line from Karen, but we get the other lines as well. Meredith, who's not a man anymore, she's now a bachelorette, says, "Who ordered the man burger? Well done." Phyllis says, "Hey, hot stuff, one last fling." And a totally unenthused Angela says, "Come ride the choo-choo. The sex choo-choo."
That was my favorite, I think. And leading up to the Skarn, we knew Packer was there. He was at the bar, and he gets a line during the song later. But before the Skarn, they're talking about it, and he speaks up and says, "The Skarn sounds gay." And Michael says, "It is gay, and straight, and black, and white, and young, and old, and cool. Check it." And so then he does the Skarn. And so that's when Packer has his line, "If doing the Scar is gay, then I'm the biggest queer on earth," yada, yada. So that's a little bit of a payoff. And at the end of the Skarn, Michael says, "You guys, I think I have my self-confidence back." It's like, yay, I'm announcing the transition to the next part of the story.
And I think the majority of that pretty much goes as planned, right? Or as we had seen. The next real change for me was after the climax of the film. Michael is accepting another mission from the president, who, as Michael Scott realized in the episode Threat Level Midnight, oh, right, the president is evil. Why did I accept another mission? And as he hangs up with the president, he says, "I'm getting too old for this, bleep." But he says beep. He bleeps himself out.
Yeah.
I guess they ran out of budget to even dub over a curse word. I don't know.
He had a line in that scene too where he says, "Well, Samuel, that was some adventure. Maybe someone should make a movie about me." And Samuel says, "They should." And yes, it was. And he's reading a newspaper, and the headline says, "Skarn saves day. Judge Apatow," which is a play on Judd Apatow as the director. He says, "Judge Apatow to make a movie about him." So I just thought that was a fun little shout out. And then the only other, there's two more small things. At the end of the credits of the movie, we get the song credits. And of course, we knew that Threat Level Midnight, the rap, was performed by Andy. And the lyrics were written by Michael, but it says, "Inspired by the music of Will Smith," which I thought was great.
Yeah. I was listening to that again, and it doesn't sound a ton like Andy to me for whatever reason. I mean, I know it is, but something about it, I don't know. I always forget it's Andy.
I don't know if I would have been able to place it if I hadn't been told it was Andy, but knowing it's supposed to be him, I can hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then lastly, the very final thing, there's a tag where Michael thinks he's being so clever. He was probably inspired by like Toy Story 2, if I had to take a guess, where they did this as well. At the end of the credits, Scarn comes out. He's in his robe. He's like, hey, what are you doing here? The movie's over. It's threat level noon again. Go home, have a life, fall in love, go. And then he calls Dwight's character Samuel. They think the movie's still going. And so they both start heckling the audience. Go home, get a life, go home already, losers. Michael points out at the audience, look at this guy. He just came for the popcorn. Could those floors be any stickier? Dwight thinks this is hysterical. He says, look at her. What's her problem? And so they continue this for another minute or so. And they head back to the rooms at the back of the hallway. And they sort of hide around the corner, but you can see them peeking their heads out. And the very last thing we see is Dwight turns the corner and charges at the camera and just goes, go home.
I have to say, I think that they were taking inspiration, though, from Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, I've only seen, that makes more sense.
Michael was dressed in the same robe, and that was the original. It was much shorter. It was just Ferris saying, what are you doing? Or he says, like, you're still here? It's over. Go home. And that's it. But he's in the same robe. There is no robot butler, of course.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah. I've seen Ferris Bueller once or twice, but I didn't remember that end credits thing. But you're right. Anyways, that's the discussion for today. We just wanted to make sure we covered what we normally cover. We didn't want to cheat anybody out of anything. So thanks for listening to the bonus, and that's season 7.
Yay! See you in season 8.
Bye.